A healthy friendship is not about constant validation or convenience. It's about consistency, trust, and mutual respect. You can feel the difference the moment you walk away from that person. Do you feel lighter or drained? Grounded or anxious? Real friends leave you feeling at peace, not on edge. They're not competing with you, comparing, or pretending to be something they're not. They're real, and that's what makes the bond strong. Not the years you've known each other, but the honesty that exists between you. Healthy friendships are built on emotional safety. You can show up as yourself, messy, imperfect, unsure, and still feel accepted. You don't have to perform, hide your struggles, or fear judgment. A real friend listens when you talk, not just waits for their turn to speak. They remember the details, not because they're keeping score, but because they care. They don't use your vulnerabilities against you. They protect them. And that's what makes them rare. One of the biggest signs of a healthy friendship is balance. You both give, you both receive. You support each other without keeping track of who owes what. You celebrate each other's wins without jealousy. You comfort each other in losses without resentment. When something good happens to you, your friend doesn't go silent, they cheer. When something bad happens, they don't disappear. They show up. That's what real friendship looks like. Showing up when it's inconvenient, standing by when no one else does. In a healthy friendship, there's accountability. You can call each other out without fear of losing the relationship. You can say, "That hurt me," and the other person doesn't get defensive. They listen, they reflect, they try to do better. Because growth matters more than ego. There's no silent punishment, no manipulation, no guilt used as leverage. You resolve things through communication, not control. That's maturity. And maturity is what sustains a friendship through time, distance, and change. There's also trust, and not just the kind that keeps secrets. It's the trust that you won't be mocked, belittled, or betrayed when you're vulnerable. You can speak freely because you know your words won't be weaponized later. A healthy friend respects your boundaries. They don't test them. They don't demand constant attention or access. They understand that your time, energy, and space have value. They know that real connection isn't about proximity. It's about integrity. Another sign is encouragement without control. A true friend pushes you to grow, but never pushes you around. They challenge your excuses, but they don't shame your pace. They see potential in you when you forget it yourself. But they never make you feel small to make themselves feel big. They don't give advice to dominate, they offer it to help. There's no hidden agenda, no invisible competition, just genuine support that comes from wanting to see you win. A healthy friendship also respects individuality. You don't have to be identical to belong. You can have different opinions, lifestyles, or beliefs, and still have respect. There's room for disagreement because there's respect in how you handle it. You can debate without disrespect. You can grow apart in certain seasons without turning each other into villains. Because in a healthy friendship, loyalty isn't about always agreeing. It's about always being honest. Watch for how they handle your boundaries. Do they take no personally, or do they understand it as part of mutual respect? Real friends don't guilt-trip you for needing space. They don't make your independence feel like rejection. They understand that people need room to grow, and they don't cling out of fear. When a friendship is rooted in security, not insecurity, there's freedom. You can come and go without fear of losing your place. A healthy friendship grows with you. It adapts to your seasons, your wins, your losses, your changes. There's no resentment when one of you evolves. You both give each other the grace to grow without keeping each other in the past. That's one of the clearest signs of maturity, when a friend allows you to become who you're meant to be, even if it means you'll spend less time together. Because love doesn't cage, it encourages flight. And then there's energy, the unspoken truth of every connection. Pay attention to how your body reacts around your friends. Does your stomach tighten before meeting them? Or do you feel calm? A healthy friend doesn't drain your emotional battery every time you talk. They refill it. They don't make you doubt your worth or question your reality. Instead, they remind you of who you are. The energy between healthy friends feels like safety, not survival. Healthy friendships also operate on honesty without cruelty. They tell you the truth when you need to hear it, not to wound you, but to wake you up. A real friend doesn't watch you self-destruct quietly just to stay out of it. They speak up even if it's uncomfortable, because their care is stronger than their fear of conflict. They want your best, even when it means saying something you don't want to hear. That's love in its truest form, the kind that holds you accountable and still holds you close. And remember this, healthy friendships don't demand perfection. They allow room for mistakes, misunderstandings, and growth. There will be times you both fall short, but the difference is how you handle it. In a toxic friendship, mistakes become ammunition. In a healthy one, they become lessons. You both learn, you both adjust, and you move forward stronger than before. Ultimately, you'll know a friendship is healthy when peace replaces pressure, when honesty replaces fear, when respect replaces control. You'll know it's right, not because it's flawless, but because it's safe, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. A friendship that gives you the freedom to be yourself, the strength to grow, and the confidence to know that you are valued. That's not common. It's something you protect, something you choose carefully, nurture intentionally, and never take for granted. Because healthy friendships are not loud. They're steady, they don't demand attention, they earn trust, they don't promise perfection, they practice integrity. And when you find one, you realize it's not about having someone who makes life easier, it's about having someone who makes life better. Consent is not just a yes or a no. It's an understanding. It's a clear, conscious agreement made by someone who fully comprehends what they're agreeing to, who has the maturity, the awareness, and the emotional stability to make that decision freely. But when you are dealing with someone who is still growing, still forming an identity, still learning who they are and how the world works, that understanding does not exist yet. You cannot consent to something you don't fully understand. You cannot consent when you're still trying to figure out what love, trust, and safety even mean. And this is where the danger lies. Because predators don't always look like monsters. They often look like protectors. They disguise themselves as mentors, role models, or friends. They know exactly how to play the long game. They don't rush, they groom. They build emotional dependence before they cross physical lines. They use kindness as bait, attention as a leash, and affection as a weapon. They blur boundaries until the victim can no longer tell the difference between love and control, between choice and coercion. Consent requires power to say no, and that power simply doesn't exist when there's an imbalance. When one person holds authority, age, experience, or emotional control over the other, the balance of choice is broken. Think about it. A young girl who looks up to someone older, someone she trusts, someone she believes in. Her decisions are shaped by admiration, fear, and emotional confusion. That's not choice. That's influence, masquerading as consent. The human brain doesn't even finish developing its reasoning center until the mid-20s. That means younger minds process consequences differently. They focus on emotion, not logic, on connection, not caution. A predator knows this. They exploit it. They tell her she's mature for her age, that she understands things others her age don't. They make her feel special, chosen, unique. It's a trap disguised as validation, because the moment she believes that flattery equals love, she's no longer in control. He is. And that's how the manipulation begins. It's not force, it's persuasion. It's not aggression, it's grooming. He studies her insecurities and fills the gaps with attention. He becomes the person she turns to for comfort, for approval, for identity. Slowly, her boundaries start to bend. She begins to tolerate words, touches, and behaviors that once made her uncomfortable, but now feel normal because they're coming from someone she trusts. That's not consent, that's conditioning. Predators are skilled at reading silence. They interpret confusion as compliance. They make the victim believe that discomfort means desire. They use every psychological tactic available, shame, guilt, secrecy, to create obedience. Don't tell anyone, they wouldn't understand. You wanted this. You're mature enough to decide for yourself. Those words aren't affection, they're manipulation. They rewrite reality until the victim begins to believe she is the problem, that she's responsible, that she chose this. But no, What really happened is that she was coerced under the illusion of choice. This is why consent is not just about words. It's about capacity, emotional, psychological, and cognitive. It's about understanding what's being asked of you and having the confidence, the independence, and the safety to refuse without fear. A child or a young teen doesn't have that. They depend on adults for protection, guidance, and approval. And when that trust is weaponized, the betrayal runs deep because it doesn't just take away innocence, it destroys the very foundation of safety. We need to start teaching this clearly. Consent is not passive, it's not silence, it's not absence of resistance. It's an active, informed, enthusiastic yes from someone who knows exactly what they're agreeing to, without fear, confusion, or manipulation. Anything less than that is not consent. It's exploitation. And when that person is too young, too dependent, or too emotionally inexperienced to make that choice, it becomes abuse, no matter how subtle the approach. The problem is, society often excuses this under the disguise of relationship. They'll say, she agreed, or she knew what she was doing. But knowing what you're doing and understanding the full consequence of it are two different things. A young girl can mimic adult behaviors, but that doesn't make her emotionally equal. Predators count on that misunderstanding. They count on the world to look the other way, to blame the victim, to rationalize the abuse. And as long as we keep confusing compliance with consent, we give predators room to operate in plain sight. Consent isn't just a moral rule, it's a psychological boundary that protects freedom. And when someone's mental or emotional maturity hasn't caught up to their physical age, they're not capable of making that choice. That's not immaturity, that's biology. You can't expect someone still developing their sense of self to navigate power, pressure, and emotional manipulation the way an adult can. The system of protection exists for a reason, because the imbalance is real. So, when someone says, "But she agreed," remember this. Agreement under manipulation is not consent. Agreement under pressure is not consent. Agreement born from fear, confusion, or dependence is not consent. The absence of a no does not mean yes. True consent requires equality, equal understanding, equal freedom, equal power. And when one person has more of it, the choice of the other becomes compromised. What makes this issue even more dangerous is how quietly it happens. There's rarely violence, rarely force. It's subtle, built through trust, affection, and secrecy. The predator creates a bond so tight that the victim no longer knows where affection ends and abuse begins. That's why awareness is everything. Because once you understand how consent truly works and what it requires, you can see manipulation for what it is. You can spot the imbalance before it becomes exploitation. Understanding consent means understanding human psychology, how the need for love, approval, and belonging can be twisted against someone who's too young to know better. It means recognizing that true choice can only exist in freedom, and freedom cannot exist when fear, power, or manipulation are involved. When we grasp that, we stop asking, "Why didn't she say no?" and start asking, "Why was she ever put in a position where she couldn't?" That's the question that changes everything. Because once you understand what consent really means, once you see how predators distort it and how society minimizes it, you realize this isn't about relationships. It's about responsibility. It's about knowing the difference between love and control, between guidance and grooming, between a choice made freely and one made under pressure. That understanding is what separates integrity from exploitation, and awareness from ignorance. You can tell a lot about a person by how they show up for you when there's nothing in it for them. That's the first sign of a healthy friendship, the absence of performance. You don't have to earn their presence. You don't have to constantly prove your worth or fight to be understood. Real friends don't keep you guessing about where you stand with them. Their consistency speaks louder than their words. They are there when you succeed, and they are there when you stumble. They don't celebrate your downfall in secret or shrink in the shadow of your success. Instead, they hold space for both your victories and your vulnerabilities without resentment, without competition, and without needing to make it about themselves. A healthy friendship is built on mutual respect, the kind that allows both people to be fully themselves without fear of being judged, mocked, or diminished. You can express your thoughts honestly, even the uncomfortable ones, and still be met with understanding. There's no silent punishment for speaking your truth. There's no manipulation dressed up as care. You're not walking on eggshells, monitoring every word, afraid that honesty might push them away. That kind of freedom only exists in relationships grounded in trust. When someone genuinely respects you, they don't need you to agree with them to validate their own sense of self. They value your individuality because they are secure in their own. Another mark of a healthy friendship is emotional safety. It's not about how much you laugh together, but how well you handle the moments when things aren't light or easy. A healthy friend doesn't disappear when life gets messy. They stay present, not to fix everything, but to stand beside you while you figure it out. They don't turn your pain into gossip, and they don't weaponize your secrets when they're hurt. They protect what you share because they honor the trust you've given them. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Someone who doesn't exploit your vulnerability, but defends it even when you're not in the room. You'll know a friendship is healthy when it feels balanced, not transactional. You're not the only one reaching out, apologizing, or compromising. The effort is mutual. You both give. You both show up. It's not about keeping score or matching gestures. It's about reciprocity, about both people contributing to the relationship's strength. And when conflicts happen, because they will, you face them directly instead of avoiding them. You don't resort to silent treatment, guilt, or emotional manipulation. You talk, you listen, you repair. Because the friendship matters more than the ego. Pay attention to how your friends respond to your boundaries. That's one of the clearest indicators of health in any relationship. When you say no, a real friend doesn't punish you for it. They don't make you feel guilty or question your loyalty. They understand that boundaries aren't rejection, they're respect, for yourself and for them. They want you to have your own life, your own peace, your own independence. They don't suffocate you with expectations or control you under the guise of concern. They don't demand access to every part of you as proof of connection. Healthy friendships allow space, and in that space, trust grows stronger. There's also accountability, a trait that separates mature connections from performative ones. Real friends don't just flatter you, they challenge you when you're wrong. They hold you to your values without humiliating you for falling short. They say the hard things because they care enough to help you grow, but they do it with compassion, not superiority. They correct with honesty, not humiliation. And they don't vanish when you call them out either. They take ownership of their behavior, they reflect, they make it right. That's how mutual respect is maintained, through humility, not pride. Energy never lies. You can feel the quality of a friendship in your body long before your mind catches up. When you leave their company, do you feel calm or conflicted, empowered or drained? A healthy friendship leaves you grounded. You don't have to recover from it. You don't have to second-guess what was meant by every word or action. There's clarity, not confusion. Peace, not tension. Your intuition knows when someone's energy aligns with sincerity. It's steady, warm, and reliable. It doesn't fluctuate with their mood or their motives. It simply exists, because authenticity doesn't need to be performed. Healthy friendships also respect growth. They evolve with you. They don't cling to who you were years ago or make you feel guilty for changing. They understand that people grow, and sometimes that growth looks like distance, but that distance doesn't mean disconnection. It means trust. They trust you to pursue your path, to explore new things, to step into new seasons of your life without interpreting it as abandonment. The bond doesn't rely on constant proximity. It relies on mutual respect and a deep understanding that connection isn't measured by how often you talk, but by how genuinely you care. There's kindness too, not the performative kind that looks good on the surface, but the steady, quiet kind that builds you up over time. A healthy friend notices when you're not okay without making you feel weak for it. They offer support without broadcasting it to others. They help you see your worth when you've forgotten it. They don't use your pain as an opportunity to feel powerful or needed. They simply stand beside you with empathy and grace. Because kindness in friendship isn't about fixing, it's about being. Communication in a healthy friendship is open and honest. You can express needs, frustrations, or misunderstandings without fearing rejection. Real friends don't make you decode their silence or guess what you did wrong. They speak directly, and they listen when you do the same. There's transparency. You don't have to wonder what's being said behind your back because you already know they'd say the same thing to your face. That's trust. Not built overnight, but through consistent honesty that proves itself again and again. One of the most underrated signs of a healthy friendship is how you both handle each other's success. Insecure people turn competitive. Secure friends turn supportive. A healthy friend doesn't shrink when you shine. They don't feel threatened by your growth. They celebrate it. They want to see you win because your success doesn't diminish theirs. And you do the same for them. No jealousy, no rivalry, just genuine happiness for each other's progress. That's emotional maturity at its highest form, to find joy in someone else's light without feeling like it dims your own. There's also forgiveness, not blind tolerance, but the willingness to repair. Healthy friendships understand that people make mistakes. Words get misunderstood. Feelings get hurt. But instead of holding grudges, you both choose to rebuild trust through honest communication. There's no silent punishment, no scorekeeping, just two people who value the connection enough to work through the discomfort. That's what makes a friendship strong, not the absence of conflict, but the ability to face it with grace. And finally, in healthy friendships, love looks like respect, empathy, and truth, not dependency. You don't lose yourself trying to keep the relationship alive. You don't have to shrink, conform, or overextend just to be accepted. You're allowed to be exactly who you are, and that's enough. You both grow individually and together because your connection is built on freedom, not fear. A friendship like that doesn't drain your energy, it replenishes it. It gives you strength to face the world because you know without a doubt that you're not walking it alone. You're walking it with someone who sees you, values you, and wants the best for you, even when it doesn't directly benefit them. That's what it means to have something real. Something built on respect, trust, and truth. Something worth holding on to. You can feel the truth of a friendship long before you can explain it. It's in the calm you feel when you're around that person, the steadiness in your gut that tells you you're safe. A healthy friendship doesn't demand that you shrink to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. It gives you room to breathe, to grow, to speak honestly without fear of judgment. When you're with a true friend, you don't have to perform, pretend, or keep up appearances. You can show up as yourself, unfiltered, imperfect, human, and still be accepted. That kind of connection doesn't come from convenience or constant communication. It comes from trust. Quiet, earned, and consistent trust. Real friends don't keep you guessing. They don't make you wonder if you're being too much or not enough. Their actions match their words. When they say they care, they back it up with behavior. When they say they'll be there, they show up. And when life pulls you in different directions, they don't guilt you for needing space. They understand that distance doesn't destroy real bonds. Silence doesn't erase respect. You can go days or even months without talking and still pick up where you left off, because genuine connection doesn't rely on constant presence. It relies on emotional integrity. A healthy friendship is a balance of give and take, not one person carrying the emotional load while the other benefits from it. You both invest, you both support, and you both respect the rhythm of the relationship. There's no keeping score, no hidden resentment. No passive-aggressive behavior disguised as care. A healthy friend doesn't punish you with silence, doesn't manipulate your emotions, and doesn't disappear when things stop being easy. They're not there only when you're winning. They're there when you're losing, when you're doubting yourself, when you don't have anything to offer except your presence. One of the clearest signs of a healthy friendship is emotional safety. You can share your fears, your failures, your insecurities, and not feel smaller afterward. They don't use your vulnerability as leverage. They don't take your private moments and turn them into gossip. They hold what you share with respect because they understand that trust is sacred. They protect your name even when you're not around to defend it. And when you mess up, because you will, they don't humiliate you or abandon you. They hold you accountable, but they do it with empathy. Accountability without cruelty. That's the hallmark of emotional maturity. Pay attention to how your body feels around your friends. Energy doesn't lie. When you leave an interaction feeling anxious, drained, or uncertain, something is off. Real friends don't make you question your worth. They don't make you feel small so they can feel powerful. Instead, they uplift you, not by empty compliments, but by genuine encouragement. They remind you of your strength when you've forgotten it yourself. They celebrate your growth, even when it surpasses their own. That's what security looks like, being able to cheer for someone else without feeling threatened by their progress. Healthy friendships also honor boundaries. They don't take your no personally. They don't guilt you for needing space or accuse you of changing when you start protecting your peace. Boundaries aren't walls, they're respect. They allow you to maintain your individuality within the relationship. A friend who truly values you understands that love doesn't need control to survive. It needs freedom. When someone respects your time, your privacy, your values, and your emotional limits, that's not distance, that's maturity. That's how trust stays strong without turning into dependence. And then there's honesty. A healthy friend will tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. They'll speak with courage, not cruelty. They won't let you spiral into bad decisions just to keep the peace. They'll hold up a mirror when you need to see yourself clearly, not to shame you, but to remind you of who you are. The kind of friend who tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, that's love. Because love doesn't enable self-destruction. It protects you from it. It's not about being right, it's about being real. In a healthy friendship, growth is mutual. You're both evolving, personally, emotionally, spiritually. You're not trapped in who you used to be just to keep the other person comfortable. You're allowed to change, and so are they. You challenge each other to be better without demanding perfection. You can have difficult conversations without it turning into war. There's no silent treatment, no emotional punishment, no scorekeeping. You resolve, you forgive, you move forward. You don't weaponize the past to win arguments. You don't compete for control. You coexist with respect. And notice this, healthy friendships don't need constant reassurance. You don't have to prove your loyalty over and over again. There's an unspoken understanding. You have each other's backs. That's it. You don't need to check in every hour to know the connection is solid. The bond doesn't weaken because of time apart. Real friends trust the foundation. They don't question it at every turn. That's why when you reconnect, it feels effortless. Because authenticity doesn't fade. It endures. A healthy friendship also inspires accountability. Not perfection, but growth. You both want to be better people because of each other. You learn from their integrity, their perspective, their strength. You see how they handle challenges, and it pushes you to rise higher. It's not about competition, it's about inspiration. You push each other forward, but never off balance. You know that a healthy friendship doesn't require losing yourself. You can both shine, and that light doesn't need to dim anyone else's. Real friends are also your mirror. They reflect the truth back to you, but they also reflect your value. They remind you that you are worthy of love, respect, and care. They help you see yourself clearly when self-doubt clouds your vision. They hold you accountable to your best self, not the version you pretend to be, but the one you're still becoming. You don't feel drained by their presence. You feel recharged. You leave the conversation feeling stronger, not smaller. The beauty of a healthy friendship lies in its steadiness. It doesn't depend on constant drama, attention, or crisis to stay alive. It's calm. It's grounded. It's a space where both people can rest, not because life is easy, but because the connection is safe. It's a relationship where silence isn't awkward, where honesty isn't a threat, where support isn't conditional. That's what real friendship feels like. Peace. Because a healthy friendship doesn't demand perfection. It simply requires presence. It's about showing up, in truth, in respect, and in consistency. You may not have all the answers, and you don't always need the right words. Sometimes it's just the act of being there that speaks the loudest. The quiet loyalty, The subtle encouragement, the shared laughter, the unspoken understanding, these are the things that make a friendship real. And when you find that kind of connection, one built on respect, safety, and honesty, you realize it's not about having someone who agrees with you all the time or who always says the right thing. It's about having someone who makes you feel safe being exactly who you are. That's the kind of friendship that stands the test of time, steady, honest, and built on truth.